If you're going to rebuild my office by tearing up the hallway,
I'm afraid you're not a good fit. The voice, calm, deep,
and cuttingly precise, sliced through the air like the edge of glass. Sophia Bennett froze mid-step, mortified. Her folder had exploded across the marble floor, blueprints and notes scattering like fallen leaves. She dropped to her knees to collect them, mumbling apologies, until a pair of polished black shoes stopped beside her hand. When she looked up, she met eyes the color of storm clouds. Cool, analytical, and far too composed for a man who'd just been run into. He crouched down, picked up one of her sketches, studied it briefly, and said without looking at her, "Interesting line work, though perhaps next time you could focus more on navigation than inspiration." Sophia blinked, half in embarrassment, half in disbelief. You could have stepped aside. That earned her a faint, almost imperceptible lift of his brow.
"In my building, Ms. Bennett," she said quickly, clutching her tablet.
Sophia Bennett, architect, here for the Carter Tech redesign project. His expression shifted ever so slightly.
"Ah, the visionary architect everyone's been praising." He handed her the scattered blueprints, his tone cool.
"So far, your first impression suggests chaos management isn't part of your skill set." Sophia straightened, smoothing her blazer and her pride in the same motion. "You must be Oliver Carter," she said evenly. "The CEO who fires people faster than contractors can invoice him." For a brief second, the tension cracked. Something like surprise flickered in his eyes. Then amusement. Touché. The hallway had gone quiet. Assistants lingered near glass doors, pretending to work, but watching every word. Sophia met his gaze squarely. "If you'd like me to rebuild your office, Mr. Carter, I'll need a clear space to start. Preferably one without obstacles." He smirked, a small, dangerous curve of his lips. "Just make sure you know what you're building."
"I don't like surprises." "Neither do I," she replied, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. A moment of silence stretched between them, sharp, electric, alive.
Then Oliver turned away, his reflection vanishing into the mirrored wall of the elevator as he spoke without looking back. "You have 2 weeks to impress me, Ms. Bennett. Don't waste my time." The elevator doors closed with a soft chime. Sophia exhaled, realizing she hadn't breathed properly in the last 30 seconds. Papers in hand, heart still racing, she whispered to herself. "Perfect. Day 1, and I've already declared war on the CEO." She glanced toward the city skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Somewhere in that steel maze, she'd just met the man who would either ruin her career or change her life forever. The next morning, Sophia stood in the gleaming conference room on the 42nd floor. Her sketches spread across the digital display wall, her name glowing in sleek, silver type at the bottom of the screen. Across the table sat Oliver Carter, the same man whose voice had practically iced the hallway the day before. He didn't bother with greetings. "You'll be redesigning not just a workspace," he said, flipping through her proposal, "but the core of how this company functions."
"I expect efficiency, not inspiration." Sophia met his gaze, calm and collected.
"With all due respect, Mr. Carter, inspiration is what drives efficiency. Without people feeling something, you just have..."
"A very expensive box." The corner of his mouth twitched, but his tone stayed even.
"Then let's see if your feelings meet my deadlines." For the next 2 weeks, their professional lives collided. Oliver scrutinized every decision, the placement of a light fixture, the curve of a staircase, the angle of natural sunlight on glass panels. He demanded perfection, precision, and punctuality. Sophia matched him at every turn. When he sent her 3-page memos at midnight, she replied by dawn with annotated designs, revised plans, and notes he hadn't even asked for. Slowly, the tension between them began to shift. One evening, long after the office lights dimmed, Sophia found Oliver still in the boardroom, sleeves rolled up, staring at blueprints like they might bite him. She hesitated before asking, "Do you ever stop working?" He didn't look up. "Work doesn't disappoint me." She smiled faintly, sitting opposite him. That sounds lonely. Oliver's eyes lifted then, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his usual armor. You don't inherit a company like Carter Tech without learning how to live with silence. Sophia's expression softened. Maybe silence isn't the problem. Maybe you've just been listening to the wrong kind of noise. For the first time, he actually smiled. A real one, brief and quiet. Over the following nights, their conversations deepened. They spoke about art, purpose, and the weight of expectations. She told him how she'd grown up fixing things with her father, because sometimes beauty needs rebuilding. He told her how his mother used to design charity hospitals before she passed, because she believed glass could let the light in. The gap between them slowly blurred, from CEO and contractor, to something unspoken, magnetic, fragile. But not everyone was pleased. From across the open office, Mia Hale, the glamorous head of PR, watched the way Oliver's eyes softened when Sophia spoke. Her painted nails tapped against her tablet. Once, twice, the rhythm of jealousy forming a plan. And just like that, the quiet chemistry between Sophia and Oliver was no longer invisible. Weeks passed, and the sterile glass walls of Carter Tech slowly began to change, both literally and figuratively. Under Sophia's lead, the once colorless corridors started to glow with life. Lush greenery in floating planters, warm lighting cascading off marble, and workspaces that felt human again. Oliver noticed everything, though he pretended not to. Your design is unconventional, he commented one morning, studying the atrium render. She glanced at him. That's the point. People don't create innovation from comfort zones. He tilted his head, lips curling slightly. You really don't fear disagreement, do you, Miss Bennett? Only when I'm wrong, she replied, meeting his gaze. And I'm not wrong about this. Oliver didn't answer, but when she returned the next day, her designs had been approved. It didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the company. By the end of the week, whispers followed Sophia everywhere she went.
She must have some kind of hold on him. No one gets Carter to change his mind that fast. She's just another pretty face climbing her way up. Sophia ignored it as best she could, focusing on her work.
But even she couldn't block out the sting when an anonymous message appeared in her inbox. Sleeping your way to the top must be exhausting. That night, she stayed late, her reflection caught in the glass walls she'd designed. Strong, beautiful, and suddenly brittle. Oliver found her still at her desk. You're here after midnight, he said quietly. Just finishing up, or trying to remember why I started, she murmured. He stepped closer. Don't let noise define your worth, she gave a humorless laugh. That's easy to say when you're the one the noise protects. For the first time, something sharp cracked through his composure.
You think I'm protected? Every decision I make is dissected, twisted, weaponized.
But I choose to stand where it matters. Sophia looked up at him, startled by the conviction in his voice. The next morning, the entire company gathered for the quarterly board meeting. A routine affair until Mia Hale, poised in her designer suit, made her move. I believe Carter Tech should uphold transparency, Mia began smoothly. Given recent concerns, perhaps it's time to address the question of favoritism, particularly concerning Ms. Bennett's involvement in the executive design project. A murmur swept the room. Sophia's face burned. Before she could speak, Oliver rose from his chair. If Carter Tech has anyone worth defending, his voice cut through the whispers like steel, it's Sophia Bennett. She's the reason this project has any life left in it. The room fell silent. Mia's painted smile faltered. Sophia sat frozen, her pulse thundering in her ears. Oliver's gaze lingered on her, steady,
Unyielding. A silent declaration in front of hundreds. I see you.
I trust you. When the meeting adjourned, Sophia walked out into the hallway, her hands trembling. She didn't know whether to feel vindicated or terrified, because for the first time it wasn't just a project on the line anymore. It was her heart. The storm didn't come all at once. It crept in quietly, like a shadow slipping beneath the door. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Sophia's name began surfacing again. This time, not in gossip, but in headlines. Design firm linked to financial irregularities in Carter Tech expansion. Sophia Bennett under investigation for contract misconduct. The articles spread like wildfire. Every photo of her, smiling, presenting, standing beside Oliver, was used to feed the narrative of a woman who climbed too fast. Inside Carter Tech, whispers turned into distance. Doors that once opened easily now stayed closed. Mia watched it all unfold from her glass office, the faintest smile playing on her lips. Sophia sat in her apartment, phone buzzing endlessly with reporters' calls. The weight of the false accusations pressed on her chest like iron. She hadn't done anything wrong, but innocence didn't stop the world from feasting on scandal. Then came the call she'd been dreading. "Ms. Bennett," Oliver's assistant said carefully, "Mr. Carter has been advised to suspend your contract."
Effective immediately, her throat tightened. He didn't say that himself? A pause?
He asked me to send his apologies. The next evening, Oliver sat in his penthouse office, the skyline reflecting against the dark glass. He hadn't slept.
Around him, the board's voices echoed in memory. "She's a liability, Oliver. If you keep her, we lose investors. The company's image must come first." He'd fought them, at first.
But as the evidence, forged and distorted, piled higher, even he couldn't stop the tide. In the end, he'd done the one thing he swore he wouldn't. He'd stayed silent, and it broke something in him. When Sophia came to the office one last time to collect her things, the halls seemed colder than ever. She avoided the stares, the whispers, the pity. Oliver met her by the elevator. For a long moment neither spoke. "I wanted to fix this," he finally said, voice raw. "But if I stay by your side now, I could destroy everything you worked for." She looked up at him, calm, steady, with eyes that had stopped hoping. "You don't get to decide what destroys me, Oliver." He took a step closer. "Sophia, please." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You taught me to fight for what's right. So this time I'm fighting by leaving." The elevator doors slid open. She stepped inside, clutching the portfolio that once held her dreams. As the doors closed, Oliver's reflection disappeared, and with it, the only warmth that had ever softened the steel walls of Carter Tech. That night, the building's new lobby lights turned on for the first time, the ones Sophia had designed. They glowed softly through the storm outside, as if refusing to let her memory dim. And somewhere deep inside his empty office, Oliver realized he'd protected the company, but he'd lost his heart. It had been 6 months since the elevator doors closed on Sophia Bennett. Carter Tech was still standing, but barely. The company's value had dropped by 17%. 2 major clients had withdrawn their contracts, and the once proud office now buzzed with tension instead of innovation. Oliver's footsteps echoed through the empty executive floor. The walls were still glass, the skyline still glittered, but it all felt hollow. Every time he passed the design wing, his eyes lingered on the blueprint that still hung on the wall. Sophia's vision for the new lobby. He hadn't had the heart to take it down. At the same time, across town, life had begun again. Sophia's new studio, Bennett & Colburn, was tucked inside a renovated warehouse near the river. It wasn't grand, but it was hers, filled with sunlight, music, and the faint scent of paint and fresh coffee. She'd started small, freelance contracts, pro bono, design work for local non-profits. Within months, her reputation had quietly rebuilt itself, not through noise or scandal, but through talent and integrity. When an industry magazine featured her as the woman who rebuilt herself, Sophia didn't smile, not out of pride, but peace. She had survived. Meanwhile, at Carter Tech, Oliver's once loyal board began turning against him. Mia's influence grew, and she used the chaos to maneuver herself closer to the top. But Oliver had changed. He no longer trusted the polished smiles, the rehearsed loyalty. Late at night, he began digging through internal reports, contract files, financial statements, chasing something that didn't sit right. One evening, his assistant slid a confidential folder across his desk. "You should see this," she whispered. Inside were emails, forged invoices, off-book payments, and leaked internal memos, all leading back to Mia Hale and two major shareholders. They'd fabricated evidence against Sophia to push Oliver into removing her, clearing the way for their own financial takeover. Oliver stared at the documents, his pulse pounding. He whispered to himself, almost in disbelief, "I let them destroy her, for this." That night, rain lashed against the city windows as he sat in darkness, replaying every moment. The hurt in Sophia's eyes, her words before she left. "You don't get to decide what destroys me, Oliver." He closed his eyes. She'd been right. For the first time in months, he knew exactly what he needed to do. Across the river, Sophia stood by her studio window, watching the same rain fall. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "From Oliver Carter. I found the truth. I'm going to make it right, even if it's the last thing I do." She hesitated, fingers trembling above the screen. Then, slowly, she typed back just 3 words. "Make it count." That night, in 2 different corners of the same city, 2 people who once lost everything decided to fight back, not for power, not for revenge, but for redemption. The boardroom at Carter Tech had never been this silent. Rain drummed softly against the panoramic windows as Oliver placed a thick file on the mahogany table. Every executive in the room leaned forward, even Mia, sitting 2 seats away, her confident smile carefully composed. "Before we begin," Oliver said, his voice calm but cutting, "there's something the board deserves to hear." He clicked the remote. The first slide appeared on the large screen. Forged invoices, fake vendor names, off-book payments. Gasps rippled through the room. "These transactions," he continued, "were used to fabricate a false scandal against an external contractor.
A woman whose only crime was doing her job with excellence." Mia shifted in her seat, her poise beginning to crack. "Oliver, I think we should discuss this privately." "No," he interrupted quietly.
"We've done enough things in private." He pressed play. The projector filled the room with a voice recording, Mia's voice, laughing, clear as glass.
"Frame her. Make it look like she falsified the bids. Once she's gone, Carter will have no choice but to listen to me." The room erupted in whispers.
The shareholders turned on Mia instantly. She stammered, tried to defend herself, but it was over. Oliver didn't look at her again. He just said evenly, "Security will escort Ms. Hale off the premises."
"Effective immediately." He didn't stay for the applause that followed.
He walked out of the room, his steps heavy but sure. For the first time in months, his purpose was clear. Across the river, Bennett & Co. glowed under the warm evening light. Sophia was packing up sketches when a familiar silhouette appeared at her door. Oliver, soaked from the rain but calmer than she remembered. She froze. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," he said softly, stepping closer. "But I had to be." He held out a small flash drive.
"Everything's been exposed. Mia, the shareholders, they're gone."
"You were right all along." Sophia stared at it for a long moment before meeting his eyes. Why now, Oliver?
Why after everything?
He exhaled, the weight of months in his voice. Because I let silence cost me the only person who ever made this place feel human. The words hung between them, fragile and raw. Sophia looked away, blinking back the sting in her eyes.
You can't rewrite the past. I'm not trying to, he said. I'm just asking for the chance to build something better, but even if it's from the ruins. A long silence.
Then, slowly, she reached for the flash drive, their fingers brushing for the first time since that storm of rumors and betrayal. She saw sincerity in his eyes. No title, no power.
No walls, just Oliver. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, she said quietly. He nodded.
Then I'll wait until you can, she almost smiled. That might take a while. I'm not going anywhere. Outside, the rain began to fade, replaced by the soft glow of city lights reflecting on wet glass. Two people stood in the quiet, not as CEO and architect, but as two survivors of the same storm, finally finding their way back to truth. The new Carter Tech headquarters shimmered under the morning sun. Glass, steel, and light woven into a monument of renewal. 3 months had passed since the scandal, and today marked a new chapter. The air buzzed with excitement as employees filled the grand atrium, their reflections scattered across polished marble floors. At the center of it all stood Sophia Bennett, clipboard in hand, watching her design come to life. The cascading staircase, the open skylight, the green garden atrium, every detail was a piece of her, built from sleepless nights and unspoken determination. "Looks perfect," a voice said behind her. She turned. Oliver Carter, impeccably dressed but softer now, his usual authority replaced by quiet pride. "I didn't design it for perfection," she said lightly. "Just for honesty," he smiled. "Then it's the most honest building I've ever seen." Before she could respond, the event coordinator gestured for Oliver to take the stage. Cameras flashed, the crowd hushed. Oliver stepped forward, looking over the sea of faces went employees, journalists, partners, and then stopped, his gaze landing on Sophia. "When this company was first built," he began, "it was made of ambition. We were strong, efficient, but hollow. Then someone walked in and reminded me that walls can't stand without a foundation of trust." The audience followed his gaze. Sophia's breath caught. "She rebuilt this place," he continued, voice steady. "Not just with design, but with courage. She showed me that success means nothing if it costs your humanity." He paused, then took a slow step toward her. The cameras turned. "So today," Oliver said, smiling faintly, "I don't just want to dedicate this building.
I want to dedicate my life to the person who taught me how to rebuild." A soft murmur spread through the crowd.
Sophia stood frozen as he descended from the stage and stopped in front of her. He reached out his hand. "Sophia Bennett, you changed this company. You changed me. And I don't want to spend another day without you." For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the faint hum of city life outside the glass walls. Sophia's eyes glistened. "You know, Mr. Carter, I never planned on rebuilding a man," he smiled. "Then let's call it a happy accident." Laughter rippled softly through the room as she finally placed her hand in his. The crowd erupted into applause. Outside, the skyline shimmered, the city alive with reflection and light. Later that evening, as the guests left and the atrium emptied, Sophia lingered near the giant window overlooking downtown. Oliver joined her quietly. "It's beautiful," she said. "It is," he agreed. "But not as much as the woman who built it." She rolled her eyes, smiling. "You're terrible at compliments." "Practice," he replied. "I've got a lifetime to get better at it." Sophia turned to him, the city lights painting gold in her eyes. "Then let's start with this one," she whispered. He leaned in, kissed her softly. A kiss not of apology, but of arrival. The camera would have caught them framed by the skyline, two silhouettes against a glowing city, their reflection perfectly mirrored in the glass. The world outside moved on. But inside that moment, everything stood still, rebuilt, redeemed, and real.